media platform Twitter and issued the formal apology. So few things are unclear here. First, the very essence that given the whole opposition to this sort of laws in Ethiopia and the experience the Ethiopian media has in terms of dealing with such sort of repressive proclamation
for air, and
streaming
they're struggling. They're struggling to their last breath, and so this is not something that we can leave it to the boardroom guys or the shareholder meeting staff. This is something that should worry us as much because our livelihood is at stake. And as I mentioned earlier, when you have 20,000 reporters and journalists losing their job in the US, and if you look at what's going on in Europe, in India, in Japan, you see that there is a large number of layoffs going on, and I don't think things will go back where they used to be. And I think it all starts from understanding what's going on and change the way we believe our place in the media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamrat. I think we're coming towards the end of the meeting, but there are a few questions on the chat. One of them is from a journalist in Rwanda, and maybe this goes to the president of the Kenya Editors Guild. If you read the question quickly, and it says, "Thank you for the meeting." It's David from Rwanda, and he's asking a critical question, which is why they were probably left out. Because it says what has been done to involve them as well. But that is one. I would ask, as we close, for Macharia to look at, there's a question from Elias Makori, Nation. Please look at the question on chat. And Kalinaki as well, as you make your closing remarks, maybe during the closing session, you may want to also respond to his questions. I think he has two for you, Daniel. So please look at those and respond to them. But maybe give this chance to the president of Kenya Editors Guild to respond to that question. But let me also refer to a comment from someone called Duracell. He says, well, there's a comment. It says, please join Data for Communicators Group. They had a meeting last week. IDRC and the Hewlett Foundation have some funding around evidence generation and aggregation. So maybe those are things to consider. There's also a comment from Ruth. It says, on Tanzania, we can have this meeting as part of marking World Press Freedom Day, and we use this platform to write a petition letter to President Magufuli, copy to AU and UN, and ask what guarantees with regard to press freedom and how we can maybe use this platform to advance press freedom in Tanzania. Maybe so those are challenges that we might want to take on board. But yes, President. And then we start the closing ceremony. As I said, I'll give this opportunity to the president, and next will be Macharia. Macharia, please make your response, maybe 1 minute or less. And then we invite Daniel Kalinaki and Lydia in that order so that we close this meeting as quickly as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor. I hope I'm audible.
Yes. You are. Please proceed.
Thank you. I get the question from David in Rwanda, and I think it really is a question that goes to the committee that currently is trying to, on an interim basis, get the East Africa Editors Forum on its scrutiny. And I think I'll take it as an invite that we should engage Rwanda from these very, very early days. I know that in conversations, even South Sudan has also come up. So there is a need and there is an interest, and I think for as long as we are focused and engaged, we should be able to find a room that accommodates all of us. Because at the end of the day, many of the issues that we have to confront, many of the issues that we have to look at, cut across our national boundaries. And many times, even just learning from experiences from colleagues helps quite a great deal. And creating a platform where where such sharing and lessons can happen, I think would be useful for us all. I thank you, and I thank everybody who has made time to have this conversation. I think it's very clear to us that the future might look very dim, very challenging. The water's very rough. And if we are to look for reasons why it is so, we can find reasons in many places. But ultimately, it behoves us as the leaders of newsrooms in this part of the world to find answers. Yeah? And I really hope that we can put our minds together and find some creative ways to get these answers. Those in power, especially, will always try to push us down, and they'll use every excuse. I mean, even social media, in a way, the challenge that is coming to the mainstream media from social media many times is organized and managed by those same forces. But we all know that for ages they've failed, and they'll continue to fail, but it never stops them from trying. So we just have to do the decent thing and keep going. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Churchill. Macharia, do you want to take 1 minute or less to respond to Elijah Makori's question?
Yes, very briefly. In fact, Kalinaki has already responded that sports journalists are having to do enterprise journalism. And I think that is, when today I look at Makori's own paper, The Nation, the sports pages are so much more interesting of events or scores or football matches. We are seeing a lot of enterprise journalism. We are seeing long reads. We are seeing sports features which probably in the past were never getting done or getting enough space. And even if the sportsmen and sportswomen are not on the field, there is still so much is happening around the sporting world in terms of what individual sportsmen or teams or athletes are doing during this enforced lockdown. And I'm seeing all these stories in The Nation, and I think we're seeing them in all the other papers in the world. And sometimes we are getting the features, the human interest features from the sports field, so to speak, which in the past were not getting enough space. Today, you can follow what Eliud Kipchoge does on a day-to-day basis, trying to keeping fit, while everything else has been shut down. There is so much to do, and it's not. I don't agree with Kalinaki that the sports reporters can cover other bits. No, there are still very many great sporting stories to be covered, and maybe this is the time now for our sports journalists to start also pushing and lobbying for their stories to move to the front page instead of always being at the back, because there will be time for there is going to be need for variety away from COVID-19.
All right, thanks, Macharia. Maybe before I invite Kalinaki and Lydia, I think he asked of the same question to Asrat in Ethiopia. Maybe Asrat, if you're here, please take 30 seconds or less to respond to the same question. Jesse and Dio, please look at the question. And the question is, how are sports journalists and editors in Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia adjusting to the fact that there is no action on the field, especially the freelancers? How are the freelancers, for example, covering that? So please, 30 minutes or 30 seconds or less for each one of you. We start with Dio and Jesse. Jesse, maybe you start. Jesse, please.
I think as Macharia put it, you know what? A lot of information, a lot of issues regarding sports and entertainment were being just thrown back because of a lot of issues was coming in. People are more interested on the current affairs. Now I think it's a time to go into details of discovering the details of all these guys who are involved in the sports, going to interrogate in details. Just forget about the superficial. Go into this to interrogate about the issues of entertainment and sports as far as they can go. Not necessarily to go to the field, but still there's a lot they can cover to know about the industry the way it is today.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. Dio?
Actually, what I'm seeing, there is a shift, a little bit of a shift from event-oriented reporting to issue-oriented reporting. We are seeing some analysis is on sports pages, which was not the case before. We are seeing some investigative journalism in sports newspapers, which was not the case before. So I think we can learn out of this. Apart from furthering their operations as the sports papers, we can use the same model to fight this monster of the online or new media the way we were discussing. Maybe if we can indulge a little bit in analysis, in IJ, we may find overcoming this monster, the so-called social media monster.
Thank you very much. And Zacharias? Zacharias, are you with us still?
I'm here.
Yes, please. There was a question from a participant from Kenya called Elias Makori. He says, how are sports journalists and editors in Ethiopia adjusting to the fact that there's no action on the field? And 30 seconds or less, please.
Okay. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, there is a consortium, an initiative that was taken by the media initiative, so by the private media and journalist associations, public media, media council, and journalism school. So it's called the Ethiopian Civic Information Consortium. So this is with the aim of mobilizing funds from donors, international donors. So the government is also involved. The Ethiopian National Broadcaster, Authority is also on board. So we'll have tomorrow a meeting to go about how to go about with it. So this is what we have on the ground right now. Sorry, your mic is off, George.
Sorry. Okay. I said I'm sorry for not managing time very well, but I'm glad that you've all stayed on this platform. So we will go straight to the closing session and the way forward. And first, I invite Daniel Kalinaki to make his remarks as part of the closing. And Daniel, you may want also
George.
Yes.
George, this is Asad. I haven't responded.
Oh, Asad. Okay. Okay. Before we
yeah. Very briefly, I just want to reflect on the point raised by our Ugandan colleagues regarding the sports journalists. It's because it's very important. I see quite interesting innovation in Ethiopia, for example, in terms of diversifying the focus of sports journalism in Ethiopia, because traditionally, in Africa, we focus on more these major sporting events like soccer, athletics, and stuff like that. But now you see sport events which usually would not have, attention of the public, and the media institutions are now getting more attention. So I think it's one way to go. I just want to share that experience.
All right. Thanks very much, Ashraf, and thanks. Sorry for my apologies for not giving you the opportunities earlier. All right. We then move straight to the closing session, and I was inviting Kalinaki, Daniel, to make your remarks on the same. Please proceed.
Thanks, George. First, to clarify, my comment on the sports journalists covering other bits wasn't a recommendation. It was explaining what many are doing. My own sense is that actually I agree with Marsh that this is the time for enterprise and for people to um, find more innovative story angles and ways of telling stories. I would in fact expand that beyond sports because many of the other traditional bits aren't happening. So the courts aren't sitting or are sitting remotely. Many parliaments are closed. Many there are no workshops. No press conferences. I think generally journalists have to become more enterprising, and that speaks to there's an earlier comment about kind of the threat of social media. I think there is a danger, and we're all guilty of it, of taking our analog content to a digital landscape. So if all we are doing is to take electronic versions of our newspapers as e-papers and put that online and expect people to pay for that as a mainstay, I don't think we're going to succeed. But anyway, my own sense is that it's a very useful conversation that we've had, but that this conversation needs to, it can't just be something that happens once a year on May 3rd. I think there is, one gets the sense, need for more regular and more forward-looking conversations. I think Tamrat makes a very important observation that we shouldn't try to reinvent a future that just replicates the past. In other words, if we're going out there to try and claw back print circulation or appointment viewing ratings for television or radio, I think we would have missed the boat. I think the the post-COVID reality is a completely different landscape and a different ecosystem for us as journalists and media practitioners. So I think there is a call for closer cross-border collaboration. We have seen it on investigative journalism projects like the Panama Papers. Many of these are coordinated remotely by the likes of International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. I think we need to have a lot more homegrown collaborations that report on stories across borders. And we need to obviously have an ongoing conversation about sustainability and funding models, because there might be things that people are doing in different countries that appear to be working, and we can then pilot those across the region. So very specifically, in closing, some of the things that we think need to happen to take this conversation forward. The first is that there is, and Churchill mentioned this in the beginning, that we're thinking about a special issue of the East African Journalism Review, which will focus on the journalism in our region, so the emerging trends, journalism safety, financing models, viability, and so on and so forth. And some of you will be asked to contribute to either expand your presentations today or just to write on kind of specific areas, so that we curate these conversations in one place that is accessible. There are also conversations that are going on to revive the East African Editors Forum, and this conversation is part of those activities. And there is an ad hoc steering committee which over the next 3 months is going to work to put flesh on the idea, so that there's structures and there's an infrastructure that allows us to have these conversations more regularly and with very specific outcomes. And then finally, we were also going to have over the coming weeks other webinars on safety themes to help journalists against threats, whether it's threats from governments, whether it's just how to cover the pandemic, so that there is a lot more information gathering and sharing amongst editors across the region. My final comment is that what these conversations reveal to us is that trust has become a premium currency for media houses. That whether it's engaging with governments and having them recognize us as essential, whether it is engaging with audiences and having them come to us as trusted sources of information, and increasingly as people that they are willing to give money to in a world where they can find free information on social media, I think has become extremely important. So putting trust back into the newsrooms, into our journalism, I think is quite an important thing. Thank you.
Daniel, for those remarks. Um, may I invite now Lydia Shingi from UNESCO.
Yes, thank you, Judge. From UNESCO colleagues and partners, it's really a pleasure for us to have joined you this day to celebrate your day and also to recognize that you are all working very hard to in a situation that really is not very pleasing at the moment. But
Lydia,
every
please turn on your video so that people can see you, if possible.
oh,
If you're not,
really? Okay. Okay. Let me know if you can see me. Hello. Can you see me now? Hello.
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
yes, we can't see you.
Can you see me? I'm trying to turn off the video. Hello?
Yes,
Looks
Lydia.
like they're deleting the video.
No.
From my side?
Yes. Anyway, proceed. Maybe proceed. Maybe it will come on at some point.
Maybe you should advise Saha about how to click it probably. That's why she's missing.
Yes.
I've put it in front of me from my head. Let me just continue since we don't have much time. If that's okay with you?
Yes, please proceed. Yes.
Yes? We can
Lydia.
proceed.
Yes, please.
Okay. As I said, colleagues, it's the mandate of UNESCO to support media development and also to promote media freedom. And that's why we found it very necessary to support and to join this initiative by the Eastern African Editors Forum that was spearheaded by the Kenya Editors Guild. We also do appreciate the support from the media personalities, the friends and partners that have come on board. And the importance of this partnership, the synergy that have created in promoting freedom in this region and indeed on the continent, we cannot do it alone. And that's why allow me, Editors Guild, to appreciate the additional support that you have received from the Open Society Initiative for Eastern Africa. We thank them for joining efforts with us, and we look forward to working with them and taking forward the recommendations from this meeting. As the previous speakers have said, and as a follow to this meeting, this should never be a one-off. It should never be a show. It should never be something that we meet, discuss, and then go and meet after 1 year. As UNESCO, we are looking forward to strengthening the regional editors forum. And also, I heard you say that you'll be looking into admitting and South Sudan in the editors from Eastern Africa. And I believe this should start immediately. But before you do so, could you also look into the issues of strengthening the national editors forums and also ensuring that they have the capacity that is going to address the issues at the national level? We'll be more than happy to join you, Editors Guild, because we know right now we have a serious gap in terms of a strong media body in this region. We know previously, and I'm saying this with a lot of caution, we've had many initiatives, but because of the internal dreams and concerns, issues, a lot of these media, especially for Africa, have not been effective if we're to have the editors forum fill this gap. So this is a challenge to you, and it's also a challenge to us to support you. This webinar platform, as the previous speaker have said, we will continue to support you. We know there is an initiative by the Editors Forum to have 3-week webinar training sessions covering safety of journalists, particularly in response to COVID-19. And of course, the review journal that our colleague from Uganda has mentioned. We're looking forward to continue supporting you and to contribute in every way, but more so to also ensure that your activity is also a major activity is being now. We do have IF, your editors forum at the continental level, to build a hub for journalists that they can have a one-stop hub for all the information that they need regarding COVID-19. And we hope that the initiatives at the Eastern African regional level and the national level will also be reinforced by what we are doing at the continental level. May I say, because we are working with the donors to the African Union, you do have platforms where you can hear your views. And I had somebody say one very important point. Before we think about, sorry to say, and quote our dirty linen, the international fora, why do we trust our own national initiatives? Why don't we trust our own regional platforms and national platforms to advocate for the issues that are affecting our region? Why can't we strengthen the editors forum at the level to advocate for these issues? Why can't we use the special rapporteur for freedom of expression and access to information within the African Commission for People and Human Rights to advocate and to raise awareness of all these issues that are affecting us? Let's believe in our own good solutions, because even the buy-in by the people that need to be addressed, particularly the political class, would be much higher if these solutions are coming from us and suggestions are coming from us. For anyone who has worked with the African Union, anything that seems foreign, really like top-down approach, does not work with our governments, does not work with our leaders, it does not work with the African Union. Therefore, it is necessary and absolutely necessary we trust our own plan, trust our own, and we work. For this partners, UNESCO is fully cognizant of the fact that independence of journalism is under a lot of pressure. And there is a very strong approach to capture that we intimidate in order to hamper journalists in their daily work, and they are doing so influence free flow information. This is something we need to, and working with you to provide any possible support solution that can help your work every day. And I've listened to many things that have been discussed today, the concerns about independence of journalism, and the major issues. In fact, the internet companies having become the primary curators of journalistic content, and some of them operating business models giving up to the mainstream media. But as we all know, the mainstream media remains very pertinent, remains very relevant, and we have to come up with solutions that are going to make it survive. We are also concerned at this very moment as UNESCO on the level of infodemic around the COVID-19, and this is leading to the disinformation and misinformation in a very unprecedented manner. However, we all know, and we have said today, that information is it. The free flow of the right information, it saves lives, and this is something we cannot begin with. And as Director General, the Director General Audrey Ozurei has said in her statement, which we have shared with you, we are in a time when we are mad in worry and uncertainty because of the coronavirus disease. The partake and free from information is essential in helping face this disease, and they are deciding that thinking over this crisis can only be supported if we have the media. And in response to this, UNESCO is teaming up with the United Nations family, their partners at national level, regional level, and global level to support many initiatives at this point. And before I close, let me highlight a few of the things that perhaps you could also link up to, you could take advantage of that we are supporting at national level, particularly from the IB's office. that is the resort to the African Union. Some of these include support to community media, because we know currently and right now one of the platforms that really resonates with the people that do not have access to the print media is a community media. And for example, in Ethiopia, we are working with Community Radio Network to establish, and we have established not two digital information sharing platforms, and also also one, and this is something that we really look forward to working with you as editors in this region. We, UNESCO and WHO, come up with a MOOC, a massive open online course that is on COVID-19. And we are working with partners, particularly IF, African Editors Forum, in the continent, and of course the African Union, CDC, and we will be looking forward to working with the Editors Forum at the national level to localize and contextualize this MOOC so that we can operate online and specifically make sure that the MOOC has units that respond to the concerns we are raising today. Also at the continental level, as you may know, the African Union has the Pan-African virtual and e-learning university. We are working with them also to contextualize this MOOC on COVID-19 and many other MOOCs that we think that would really provide a platform for journalists to have the right training. As you've seen during this crisis, honestly, there's a lot we can do online. We do not have to spend millions of dollars meeting physically. We can still utilize the online platforms, and these are the innovations that we need to work with you. If you have good ideas, share with us to ensure that no one is left behind, not those people that are really never able to attend these meetings at the global level or regional level, but we can contextualize whatever is relevant to us and come up with innovations and with ideas that can respond to the challenges we have identified today. On this note, our partners, as I want to reiterate that I have supported the way forward, some of the things that you have said, and we'll be looking forward to working with you. We are not saying that we have the funding to do so, but UNESCO has the mandate to mobilize the funding when it comes to media development, when it comes to issues of promoting freedom of expression and media independence, and particularly one of the pertinent issues that is our mandate to promote safety of journalists. So whatever ideas you come up with, please do not